course, making sure that it is selecting C#, I am going to click on Next. And I'm going to name this project exactly the same way as my other projects. So Red Books, except this one is going to be .tests. And I'm going to click on Create. And of course, a fourth project is going to be added to my solution. And this project, if you expand the packages, notice that it's going to be using Xamarin.UI test. This one right here is the important package. Sure, of course, NUnit is crucial, but the one that is more important for our context with App Center is going to be the Xamarin.UI test. This is the one that App Center is going to use to perform these tests in the cloud. And let's explore this package a little bit before jumping over to the other two projects, the Android and iOS, and making sure that they are ready. So if I expand App Initializer, I'm going to find an iApp property that is going to be returning a particular configuration depending on the platform. So you can see that if the platform is Android, it returns a configure app with .android or with iOS otherwise. This iApp property is going to be used over on the tests. Notice that an iApp is going to be obtained precisely from that start app message from the app initializer here on the before each test method, so it can be used to do things like take screenshots or tap something on the screen or enter some text on some entry and so on. This instance of an iApp is going to be very important to execute all of these tests. And it is being created before each test just so it is an entirely new instance, so we can make sure that maybe some information from previous tests does not interfere with new tests. So it creates an entirely new instance every time a new test is going to run. So excellent, this is a very simple configuration, and so far we only have one test that of course does pretty much nothing other than take a screenshot. Eventually it is here where we are going to add just a few tests. The idea here is not to focus too much on unit testing, but to write a couple of tests and be able to upload them to App Center and see them run over there. So perfect, we have this new project. Now there is something that we should do over on Android and iOS to make sure that they are ready to perform the tests. Let's get started with the iOS project. So in the iOS project, I will have to navigate over to the app delegate and to the finished launching method. In here, I will have to add a call to a new method that is going to be initializing those tests. Now that method actually exists on another package that I have to add. So first things first, I am going to right click on the packages here on the iOS project and only on the iOS project, and add a new Node.js package. The package that we're going to be searching for is the Xamarin Test Cloud. So you're going to find precisely this one, xamarin.testcloud.agent. This one right here, we're going to be adding it to our project. Now, the reason why we need this package is because in the case of iOS, and don't worry, in the case of Android, it's not going to be necessary. But in the case of iOS, this Test Cloud agent has to be linked to the IPA file, the file that gets generated for us to install our application on an iOS device. And this agent is an embedded HTTP server that will allow Xamarin UI Test, remember the package that is added to our test project, this one right here that I mentioned is the one that App Center will actually have to use. The Test Cloud is going to enable UI Test to interact with the iOS user interface, which is exactly what we're going to need to execute our tests. So we have that package. Now over here in the finish launching, we can call the method that I was referencing. That is going to be inside of Xamarin.calabash. And Calabash is going to have a start method. Just like this, we're going to initialize a new Test Cloud agent. However, if we leave this on a release build for our application that has to be published to the App Store, Apple is not going to publish our application. It's going to return some issues. It's going to tell you that your IPA package is calling some methods that it shouldn't, because the Test Cloud agent should not be on an application that eventually is deployed to the App Store. So what we will have to do in here is add a way to check if the current build is a debug build. And if not, this is simply never going to be called. And that can actually be accomplished rather quickly with a #if evaluation. And the value that we can check is enable test cloud. This is actually going to return true only if we are on a debug build. If we are on a different kind of build, this is never going to be called. And so let me just end the if right here. So with this information right here, the agent is only going to be used on debug builds. And remember this because over on App Center, we will have to set up the test build as a debug build, which it is already set as so, but it's going to be important. So this is actually started and we can actually perform the tests on iOS. So this is everything that we have to do for iOS. Now let's jump over to the Android project. In the Android project, we're also going to have to make some modifications. And the first one is go over to the properties, open the Android manifest, and make sure that in the required permissions, we are checking internet, just like that. And after that, we're going to right click on our Android project and navigate to options or properties and navigate over to Android build. We have to disable the option that says use shared mono runtime. Because if you select this, the shared mono runtime is actually going to prevent the Xamarin UI test to run from App Center. And that is exactly what we're trying to do, so we have to disable this. Click on OK, and there we go. Our projects are ready. Both the Android and iOS projects are ready for us to start coding some tests. So finally, what I will do with all of this being ready is go over to my terminal, and remember that I am on feature 8, and commit this. I am going to add a small message that says that we are preparing for tests, which solves issue number 8. So perfect, I will commit this, and I will push this over to Origin, which is my GitHub remote, in a new feature 8 branch. And as soon as I push this, of course, everything is going to be sent to that remote, which means that I will be ready to merge everything into dev through a pull request. But you already know how to do that, so I won't focus on that just yet. What I want to do in the next lecture is install some tools that we will need for us to eventually upload all of the tests over to App Center, which is going to be slightly different depending on the framework. In our case, as I already mentioned in a previous lecture, we're going to be following everything that is required for Xamarin UI test.